Good evening and welcome to the Selectboard Health Sewer Commissioners meeting of March 5, 2025 at 5:37 p.m. This meeting will be held in a hybrid fashion with the opportunity for both in-person attendance and remote participation. Please note that while an option for remote attendance and/or participation is being provided as a courtesy to the public, the meeting hearing will not be suspended or terminated if technological problems interrupt the virtual broadcast unless otherwise required by law. Members of the public with particular interest in any specific item on this agenda should make plans for in-person versus virtual attendance accordingly. The meeting will be held in person in the main meeting room of Deerfield Municipal Offices. In accordance with the Mass General Law, Chapter 38, anyone intending to record the meeting must identify themselves to the clerk, Blake Gilmore, and provide their name and address for the record. So I'll call the meeting to order, and at this point, I would like to offer anyone an opportunity to make 2 minutes worth of public comment, for a total of 20 minutes. Anyone online or in person? Being no one, we will move on to the first item on our agenda and hearings and appearances. And Lily Dwight from the Ad Hoc Senior Housing Committee is here. So take it away, Lily.
Thank you. I'm sorry I'm not there in person. We have a CPC meeting. So
Are you able to hear us? Are we speaking?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Good.
Okay. This is all good. I'm sorry I'm not there in person. But what I'm here to speak to tonight is the review committee that we have recommended to you all. As you recall, a few months ago, I proposed sort of the roles, the collected roles that we would see. And then I believe I emailed specific names to you a week or two ago. And so for roles, we were talking about a couple of neighbors, and a representative from the town administration, a builder, a select board member, and the senior housing ad hoc committee. And for neighbors, Gail Fitzpatrick and Tia Christensen, who are both residents of North Main, have volunteered. We did talk with Jason and Melody Clark, but because they are abutters, there would be a conflict of interest concern. And Jason has assured us that he will be plenty vocal in all of our meetings, and we will certainly know his feelings on it. So, we had talked about making them non-voting members of the committee, but he felt strongly, and I think it makes sense that
Sorry, Lily.
We shut you off.
There was a mouse glitch. They bit the cable.
Yeah.
So you have to go
All
back.
right, what did you last hear me say?
We heard you.
Hi, this is Lily.
We heard you mention, though, the neighbors, Tia Christensen and
Okay.
Patrick, and then you can go on from there.
Yeah.
Okay. So originally we were speaking with Jason and Melody Clark, but because they are immediate abutters, there was a conflict of interest problem there. And we talked with them about them being non-voting members, but Jason felt strongly, and I think, and I agree, and everybody on the committee agreed, it made sense that there should be neighborhood people who can vote. And so Tia Christensen, who lives across the street and down, worked with the State Attorney General's office, the Ethics Commission, to determine that she is not considered an abutter, but is a neighbor. And the same is true of Gail Fitzpatrick. And also, Jason has... Now I lost you. Now you're all gone. Are you there? It's still recording, but you're gone. Well, let's see. Wow. Maybe since they're still recording, I'll just finish this conversation. I don't know. Doesn't make sense. Hmm. I'll leave. Okay. So I'll say this really fast. You have the list of people who includes neighbors, and builder, and Trevor had offered in the past to be the select board representative. We had thought the planner might be, but I think that we'll leave that up to you all and or Christopher to figure out who would be a good resource.
Is there a limit of number of people that can be on this? I mean, I know that more people gets difficult.
There's 9 people at the moment being suggested.
Okay.
I think that's the upper limit of what's a functional
Right.
committee. 5 people is a good number. 7 people is a decent number.
Yeah.
11 is not a good number, unless you have had different experiences than I have.
No.
What do you think,
Is-
Blake?
Well, I would like to be on that committee. I also like to see another contractor on that committee too. So I was just wondering, maybe we could pare down the senior housing committee to a couple of members for there, and then we could actually put some other people on there.
So you want you're looking for an additional builder beside Vern? Is that what? Do you have someone in mind?
Yeah, I've talked to a couple of them. I'm waiting to hear back from them. So I don't want to give them, because if they're not going to come, then I will defer.
And the logic of having 2 builders is,
I just think that, again, when you've got people that have been involved with project managers and things like that, it would probably be again where, once we're done with this thing, the builder has complete control over this project. I just think that we should really put some effort into making sure that it's being done correctly.
Well, I would just like to say on behalf of the Senior Housing Committee that I did ask if anyone was willing to step out, but everyone is very invested in the project, as we've all been working on it for a number of years. So that's why everybody is there. And we have certainly worked with all of the consultants and everything in defining the needs for the RFP as well. But obviously, it is up to you all. I don't know.
I would just like to say I would be reluctant. I think the reason that you might have suggested Trevor is because he's going to be the chair of the select board next year.
Yes.
Beginning in May, I assume. Once the election takes place, there might be a new member. And so for continuity's sake, Trevor's been on the select board for 8 or 9 years. And, so it made sense if he was going to be the select board representative, assuming he's willing to do it. And
I don't mind, but I don't want to take a spot that somebody truly wants either. So
right. And so, I just don't know that 2 select board members should be on the committee.
Sure.
It's basically a quorum, and then you got to have a meeting, and
Correct.
it causes problems. And so,
I mean, if Blake feels strongly enough that he wants to be on that committee, I don't feel strongly that I need to be on
right.
it.
Well, I feel strongly that we don't have enough information tonight. So
Yeah.
I think we ought to put this on abeyance.
Okay.
And let's hear back from the potential contractors that Blake's mentioned. We would, of course, then Vern Harrington has been, everybody knows they are associates. He's been
Yeah.
working on the
Yeah.
library committee. He's very knowledgeable, is a good committee member.
Yeah.
And,
Agreed.
raises really, really interesting and vital questions about this, any construction-related issues. So we'd certainly want to know who else might want to serve.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I do just want to share with you all that the on-site visit is scheduled for next Thursday at 10 a.m. for developers.
right.
Okay.
just so you know, because I would assume that anybody who's on that committee would like to be there at the same time.
Sure, but I have no objection to those people coming if they're
Right.
available to go. And I'm sure we'll have somebody from the town administration to, go to this site visit. And Blake, myself, maybe we would go as
Yeah.
interested parties.
Okay, just wanted to make sure you knew about that date.
What time was that again, Leland?
10 a.m.
On,
10 a.m.
on
Thursday, the 13th. I think it's the 13th.
Thank you.
Lily, just real quick, what's a quorum for your committee for ad hoc senior housing?
3.
3, okay.
So these would always need to be posted at least as a housing committee meeting, which is
Sure.
typically, that's, even though there's no board quorums on the library building committee, the committee itself posts and has quorum requirements and they're public meetings. So the same would apply here. It's just that doubly so because you would be an actual quorum of your committee.
Well, so that brings up another question. Is the ad hoc senior housing committee's charter has been fulfilled by the creation of the RFP? And so we obviously need some sort of housing interest going on and stuff, but I just wanted to point that out because it's not clear what the select board would like to do about the senior housing committee now.
Well, I guess we're going to have to cross that.
Okay.
Yeah, the RFP isn't finished, so it could fall through. You'd still be.
That's true. Let's hope not. You're right. I was being an optimist. Okay.
What's the street address at North Main?
83, 85.
83.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, and that's 10 a.m.
Correct.
Wonderful. So does that seem reasonable that we need to get more information before we can make a decision about this?
It's entirely up to you. You would ask me to make a recommendation
Yep.
that has been done. Do with it what you will.
Okay. So we'll probably have this discussion again put it on the next agenda, which is 2 weeks from now. So unless there's anything else you need to share with us, Lily, I appreciate your time this evening. On to your next meeting.
On to the next meeting. Thank you all very much. Have a good night.
Thank you, Lily.
Bye.
All right. Next up is David Prickett of DPC Engineering to talk about some thought experiments for the old Deerfield wastewater treatment facility.
You guys need handout or?
It's in our
No,
package.
yeah,
You
you
got it.
printed it out. Yep, we're good.
Good.
Thank you.
So
Welcome.
just introduce yourself for the audience and
Sure. Dave Prickett with DPC Engineering. I don't know if you want to give any intro, Mr. Chairman, or if you,
preamble could be you or Trevor or Christopher Dunn, whomever. I mean, basically, we've been around and around this plant for a while, and we have had numerous scenarios that all cost a lot of money, and now we're back to the idea of trying to do this in a stepwise fashion, and does that make sense to fix one portion, leapfrog to the next portion? And I think Trevor has asked you to come and discuss how that might work.
yeah, I guess just in terms of preamble, you have 2 treatment plants. South Deerfield and Old Deerfield were built around the same time back in the 70s. When we went through the upgrades for the South Deerfield plant, the group collectively defined what our goals and vision were at the time. When that started, the hope or intent was that the Old Deerfield plant would get pumped down to South Deerfield and you'd have one facility. The plan was to kind of do some upgrades at South Deerfield and then at Old Deerfield and back. Well, the way it unfolded, in a good way, with the contractor that you had and the USDA commitment, is you've gone through the entire upgrade for the South Deerfield plant. I would describe that upgrade as robust, long-term, a lot of like redundancy, safety factors built in. That was the initial approach thought, as you mentioned, Tim, up at Old Deerfield, probably going back a couple of years now.
Yeah.
But in light of everything that's happened with the craziness with construction costs, the challenges with getting funding, just everything that's already on the ratepayers for debt service, et cetera, we were asked to try to look at a different set of goalposts for Old Deerfield. And rather than, focus on robust, long term, really, the lens is more on fixing old equipment within the squares, rectangles, and circles that exist over there now. So again, there's nothing wrong with that. It would be a collective decision that the town would want to make before embarking on that path. And Tim had brought up, and I'd met with Eric over there at the plant to try to develop a phased program concept. And it really is a concept to start.
Right.
But the goal there was to try to spread it out a little bit over a series of years. So in your handout, the first page is that first cut that was looked at late last year, early this year. So I know you've had that and seen it and had a chance to look at that.
Yeah, I wanted
Go
to
ahead,
kind of
Trevor.
mention that I guess the reason the biggest liability of that plan is electrical. And so there is, we can get the effluent clear enough to get to the river, but at some point, and it can happen tomorrow, it could happen 3 weeks from now or a year from now, that the electrical will go and you just can't get parts for that stuff anymore. It's too old. We've been robbing Peter and Paul and stealing parts, and if it goes down, we're kind of in trouble. And so the thought was to, instead of tackling a large project all at once, was to tackle the electrical first, then look at headworks to try and clean out the influent into the plant, and then look at aeration and clarifying after. And do we add to that square footage of the rectangulars and rebuild the rectangular aerator, the clarifiers that we have now, or build one circular unit, but I think we're thinking keeping it all.
I think we're
in
talking
footprint.
about working within the
Exactly.
vessels that we have, the
Yeah.
walls that we have, and
And
you hit the nail on the head. Electrical, it's a neurological update first.
Yep.
The staff's done a really good job scabbing parts as
Yeah.
best they can, but as you know, you've done that as many times as you can, and there's no
Yes.
more spare parts.
right,
Even on eBay.
even on eBay.
Yeah, I mean, it's
And-
1970s. I mean, there's not a lot of things you can buy for something that was built in the 70s,
And
you
I
know.
think another factor in this is that we have a different administrator of the department now who
Yep.
has really good skill at running the plant and keeping it running, and feels we don't need certain things, and we don't need to go way out of the ballpark and do a whole new plant. He can make what we have work, but he does, but he is requiring, like, hey, you need the electrical, because if this goes down, there's nothing I could do to keep it going. So I think he, just that's a different input into the situation we didn't have when we were looking at this 5 years ago.
Yep. I mean, I was hoping Eric might be here this
I
evening.
know,
But
it's my fault. I
he's
probably
he's a
didn't
former
mention it.
Navy guy. He will
Yeah.
work with what he has and make the most out of it.
Yep.
The place will be spotless, and
Yeah,
he'll
he's very
do what he
good.
can. So he does more with what he has than most people, I think, is a fair assessment.
Yes.
And part of the concept or approach here is that if you take kind of a scaled back approach to replacing equipment over time, beyond that first phase, electrical, that's the most kind of cumbersome and contractor needed. But after that, Eric's willing to take on some of the smaller individual systems, pump at a time type things
Yeah.
that he could presumably work with Christopher and his staff on the kind of low level procurement things.
Right.
So that adds a dynamic that we didn't have, obviously, with the other upgrade, given the size.
Right. Right. And I feel like really the key is electrical. And we were thinking, the thought was that I think that Eric had, and you guys brought up, was to kind of build something off-site, bring it there, blow through the wall with.
Yeah, we don't
connection.
want to do any temporary electrical. The concept would be to bring in
A fully,
yeah, it's basically like a storage container on
Right.
X-Fault.
Yep.
And they fabricate the electrical. It comes on site, you get a new service to it. So you'd
Yep.
have a new electrical service, likely a new generator,
Right.
and have that, center electrical system there and then backfeed everything else. So as you replace individual systems, now you can, bring wiring, electrical starters over to each location.
Right.
Anytime we look at a phase project, phase one is always the most robust.
Yeah.
So
Like,
when you do this, I know that they were talking about putting it up against where the old electrical system is inside the building. You pull that all out and just,
this would be outside.
Yeah.
I know the Connex box would be
Yeah.
outside, but when you put it through the building to connect, are you going through the old system or do you have to rip that out?
In some cases, the old motor control center, MCC, would become a junction box.
Okay,
But that new service will have its own new switch gear. We've kind of gotten away from MCCs as a kind of business, the whole business, not just DPC. And then individual panel boards would be fed from there. So it'd feed off to your control panel for your influent pumps, and you'd have your VFDs for those. And yeah, it's tight, right? So, I mean, you still have to figure out a way to site. There's some overlap. So that
Right.
becomes there's
hard
pros and cons. The phased approach is that it's going to be lower cost. We've changed the goalpost that we're kicking to. It's a 17-yard field goal.
Right.
But when we go into phasing, now we have to make sure we have added thought and assurances as to how the phases overlap.
Right.
And if we don't think that through up front, doing electrical followed by headworks, followed by mechanical 1, mechanical 2, it might sound good, but it may be that pieces from phase 3 have to go into phase 1, or pieces from
Correct.
phase 1 have to go into phase 2, just to make the work make sense.
It's kind of how we wound up with what we were doing at South
It is.
Deerfield.
It is.
We got into it and we're like, we can do this now, but everything's here. The contractor's here, the cement truck, like might as well just
Yep.
do this at this time. But if we could plan it out in such a way that we could have a good blueprint, so we're not shortchanging ourselves for phase 2
Yeah.
and 3, but and phase 1 might get a little heavier than we were thinking, but
Right.
but just to make sure that we can get all that stuff laid out.
And it was prophetic in hindsight, because getting USDA and SRF funding right now is really hard. So
Yeah.
USDA is focusing on projects that are driven by new regulatory requirements, like a new phosphorus limit or copper or something like that, which the Old Deerfield plant is a renewal. It's an equipment renewal. So
Right.
that would be harder than it was the first time. And the priority list intended use plan came out from Mass DEP a few weeks back. And
Right.
I shared this with Trevor.
Yeah.
I didn't really see a project outside of 495 on the list. So we're kind of back to those days.
Yep.
Where Western Mass is,
Right.
and there's huge projects in Boston on the Cape right now, like literally billions of dollars of wastewater work, and that's where the money's going.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So the concept of trying to chip away at these with more manageable bites, should
The
you
other thing
choose.
is that since the South Deerfield plant was put in place under the old regulations that required the town to pay a minimum of 25% of this, we've changed the bylaws. We've allowed betterment charges for infrastructure for specific users. We've taken away the requirement for the town's taxpayers to contribute anything to this. This plant essentially services nonprofit schools, and I would like to pursue a negotiated agreement with those schools to pay for these stepwise. Obviously, there are still a few less than 30 houses that are taxpayers that are down there who use this system. And those numbers are going down as more houses are purchased by nonprofits. So we'd want to use whatever we have the legal authority to do to minimize the impact on the ratepayers.
do you have a cost for this, for the entire project?
I
Or-
don't.
No.
I mean,
Okay.
this is, I don't want to call it back of the napkin. That's not fair, but it's a couple of days worth of
Mhm.
back
Yeah.
and forth between Eric and I. On the second page,
Yeah.
you
So
know,
we
Trev-
would have to actually go into,
where I think things are at is, if you're interested in moving forward with consideration of a phased plan, my recommendation, my advice would be go through the process of doing a preliminary design report.
Mhm.
I guess I'd call it kind of post-planning, pre-design. It's in that
Yeah.
overlap layer. And again, it goes back to making sure that things are really well thought out, that your new superintendent, who wasn't there at the beginning of the South Deerfield plant, who is now,
Right.
gets to chime in with his efficiencies, our
Yep.
collective lessons learned, et cetera, to save costs.
Mm-hmm.
And then have a written deliverable that can summarize that for this communication plan, you know?
Right.
So my understanding is that those potential discussions with the nonprofits would involve, you know, laying out what the plan was collectively for all of the old Deerfield
Yeah.
wastewater infrastructure. So
I think, I think they're gonna want to know, like, okay, so this is phase one. What are you doing next? Okay, what
Yeah.
are you doing next? And then what are you doing to address the
a
influence
a
of
cash
all the
flow
pipes?
plan, right?
Yeah, some sort of
They
cash
do
flow
budget
plan.
forecasting probably
Right.
longer than, you know, than some, but
And to have some kind of assurance that we're gonna stay somewhat on this plan to
Yeah.
kind of, this is how we think we're gonna tackle it, and this is how we want to maintain it.
to date, when we've looked at this, I think admittedly, it's come up like fast, like little
Mhm.
speed bumps, and we've done a couple of previous planning things. I just want to make sure if we work together and move this forward, that we dot the i's and cross the t's up front. It's just going to make for a heck of a lot cleaner,
Right.
especially for those pieces that Eric and Christopher might be able to procure directly without a formal, you know,
Right.
design, bidding, construction phase. Having a basis of design really goes a long way. So
Yeah, and I think there's, and there's a cost for this work, right? It's not.
there is.
So,
I mean,
yeah,
I
so
literally,
You had like up
this
between 40
afternoon,
and
you know,
50
at
to-
2 o'clock, it was, you know, what does this, off the third page. Didn't
What does
print
the
on that
plan
one.
look like? I think, yeah, you've got it on the last page here.
Yeah, it's on the last page.
draft
It's ju-
scope and
This is
service.
what we've done at other facilities in terms of a scope.
Right.
And I put pen to paper, again, quickly with what we
Yeah.
thought the hours and level of effort were given the facility. And a lot of the things that we have already invested that we know about have reduced those costs. But
Sure. Yeah.
my hope and thought is that this is where I think you should be if you want to have good comfort level going into those discussions.
Right.
With that said, if your preference was to say, you know, we don't want to do a report, we don't want to have, you know, we just want to have cost tables and preliminary figures, you could scale it back. And as we've always matched scope to meet budget
Right.
with the town, but I'd be most comfortable with something like this. And then
Yeah. I think it would list out kind of, get us a little bit closer for when we have these discussions that they're not, we're not way off base here and we're kind of,
these things usually fall apart when there's a perception of what you're getting or paying for.
right.
And instead of being two parties between consultant and owner, now you potentially have consultant, owner, and
Users.
maybe up to three other,
Users.
you know, voices
Yeah.
as a third
Right.
piece there. And that's, you talked a little bit before about boards with committees with 3, 5, 7, 9, 11. I agree with you, Mr. Chairman. Like the more voices you have on anything, the harder it can sometimes be to,
Yeah, it's usually much better to have people who are in the chorus asking questions and helping inform the people who have to make the decision,
Yeah.
and not having so many people who are decision makers that you can't make a decision. Because I think that a previous sewer commission fell apart because there were so many people on it and they couldn't agree on anything and they ended up fighting with each other, and then they quit, and then they, so then the select board took it back over when there was only 3 people.
right?
Yeah.
And then some decisions got made and brought to the voters, and the voters made the ultimate decision to spend the money.
Yep.
So, yeah, I fully think that we know from everybody who's looked at this plant that the biggest problem is the electrical.
Yeah.
And that's why we identified it as the first thing.
Yep.
I agree also that we need to, if we're going to go this route, we need to have a reasonable plan that the operator and our engineer, whoever that is, at the moment it's you, agree is if this plan is followed, it will yield a good result.
Right?
Yeah. For a good long
because,
time.
We had a couple of different plans looked at. We had them peer reviewed. And the plan that, the nonprofits were favoring was judged not to be quite as good as a more traditional plant for a number of reasons. I think this approach makes much more sense to me personally as a frugal guy.
Mhm.
Fix the problem that's going to make that plant not work,
Right. Right.
and
Your
have a
risk.
plan to then, having done that, let's do these next things.
Yeah.
So that we can make sure that the operator safety is built into it by having a headworks.
Yeah.
We don't want people 30 feet down in the ground, with potential, carbon dioxide collapse or something, you
And,
want,
and that's something where Eric,
Yeah.
is advocating for something
Keep it.
down in that existing wet
Right.
well area. And
Yeah.
again, there's nothing wrong, as long as everyone understands pros, cons, risk, reward,
Right.
cost,
Right.
and we make a decision.
right.
Yep.
But we would never recommend something that wasn't safe. So there would have to
Exactly.
be added
Yeah.
safety features
Right,
for the guys going down there. So,
sure.
uh,
So, what are we thinking, Trevor,
So-
Blake?
Yeah, I mean, we could kick this around a little bit. I thought that it would be a great idea to kind of come and listen to the plan, think about this for a week or so. Talk about, look at where we have the funding to do, to get a more robust budget together. And then once we have all of those, we have a plan laid out, a schedule laid out, rough figures laid out, we could then talk with all the partners involved in, in town and say, this is kind of where we'd like to get started. This is how we'd like help. We need partners in this to do this. And we think this, I think if we come to them with a full plan, reasonable, they want to help. They know that we have this issue and I think we're going to make it work.
So
Good.
I am in agreement with that. But the thing is, again, I think that you've got to get your costs
Yeah.
in line so that
And
you
that's-
know exactly what the cost is going to be, not only the entire cost for the whole project, but per phase.
Yeah.
So
So that,
again, like you were just saying earlier, that
Right.
they can plan for that.
Yeah, and
figure
we
out what
can,
needs to be
we
done.
can get it down to the, very accurate relative to current day cost. The part that we can't control that no one can is, for 25 years in my career, I could count on 3 or 4% annual inflation for construction. In the last 5 years, like throw it out the door. So
yeah.
things are settling down a little. But like electrical, that's their
Yeah.
first phase. That's the one that still hasn't calmed down. So
Right.
right now, the stuff that we need, it's a 50 to 90 week lead time.
Yeah.
So even phase one
Well,
Is out there.
it used to be 12
Right.
months and you were done. Now that's a 24-month project. Sorry, Blake.
so, no, I just was going to say at that point, I think what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to put in that percentage
Sure.
that you feel is what's going to be.
We'll take a crack
in-
at it. Yeah.
Right, and if you even go over a little bit, if we return money at the end, everybody's
Right.
usually a little bit happy about that.
Right.
Yeah.
So I would over budget to, a certain percentage so that, again, you're feeling comfortable that you're gonna fall within the realm of whatever that percentage is gonna end up being by the time you get the product and you start putting it
So
together.
we could, as members look this over till the next meeting, and then you could send a more, a formal
I can provide a
contract.
formal
Yeah,
proposal.
formal
You should-
proposal
You
at
should
the,
take the time that you need. to-
yeah, and then we should just talk with Brenda and see, and Eric, what do we have for engineering for this year, next year? Do we have money here to do this? And then decide, and because we really need to spend the money to really get a solid number. It's not the final engineering and a final plan, but it gets us a lot closer. And so that costs money. So I think, we just take a couple
So-
weeks.
Just so, yeah, I mean, that all sounds good, but just so I understand what's in front of me tonight, on the third page, it has anticipated the budgetary costs 40 to 50,000.
Yep.
Is that to develop this plan that's spelled out on this
Yeah.
sheet? Right. So
Yeah.
we're looking at 40, 50K. We're looking at possible funding source within the sewer,
Yes.
enterprise.
Or the budgets of the enterprise, yeah.
Right. And, we are also about coming up to the annual town meeting. So,
Right.
we could do it in a different way, but I would prefer to
Correct.
keep it within the sewer family.
Yeah,
But it makes sense to me. I've looked at this. I've had this information for a little while, so
yeah,
I've looked at it. A phased approach makes sense to me. It looks like, I would have been more interested in what would there must be a certain power draw on this plant, and there must be a certain idea of roughly what an electrical system that can provide this much power to this kind of equipment. Maybe you could give us a ballpark figure, but we will get that in this study, right? We'll get,
100%. So like in a preliminary design report, some of the key kind of preliminary plans, figures, process flow diagram.
Mhm.
So the operator is going to want to understand how are we going from A to B to C, where are the valves, how many am I getting, what are the sizing? That's a
Right.
critical piece of information.
Mhm.
The electrical one-line diagram being the other one.
Right.
So you know exactly what the loads are.
Mhm.
And if you do decide that you want to move forward with electrical while we're not building clarifiers and such, I think it's pertinent to say, what could we see over the next 30 years for new permit conditions, whether
Mhm.
it's, tertiary treatment, who knows? It could
Right.
be anything. I mean, you're going to a pretty high quality receiving stream,
Right.
with recreational activities. So I think we would, again, you would decide to be part of that too. Do you want to go from a 1,000 amp service, to a 1,200 amp service, and the cost differential is
Mhm.
go from X to 1.1X? You make the decision. Do
Right.
you want to invest in
Yeah.
that?
Want to build in some redundancy and
Mhm.
some, because what's happening in the plant now is, I mean, it would be totally different technology, one hopes, but you can't buy the equipment to replace when some part of it breaks
Right.
down. So,
Yeah.
I've never had anyone complain about having extra conduits,
Yeah.
electrical capacity. It's,
right. So,
yeah.
yeah, well, so that's all good information.
But it can snowball if you don't,
Mhm.
have the buffers on there with the team,
Right, exactly.
the
And
operations team and the money technical, team
Yeah.
too. So,
Yes.
yeah.
in the first, the preliminarily high draft, back of the napkin, first phase, where Headworks is also included, even if you didn't include the Headworks in the beginning, my understanding is that, as Trevor's explained it to me, is that Headworks come in different sizes and they can be made to fit into spaces, or they can be made into a new building, but that there is a feeling that some sort of Headworks unit could fit into the lower.
Yeah, we already laid that out with
yeah.
the manufacturer, to see if it would work. Cause
And
I
so you-
didn't want to move that into phase one without,
Right. And so you know the
Clarifying, so-
load there, and so that
Yep.
could feed into the electrical and so forth. So,
right.
yeah, so I think that's a good plan, Trevor. If you agree, Blake, that we, just make sure we read up on this.
And then send over.
I'll
the
get you a
contract.
formal proposal so
Yeah.
you have all the,
That'd be great.
exactly.
And we can
It's
Right.
talk
perfectly
with-
clear. This
with
is
the-
rough, but it gets you a sense.
And then we should also, just check with the enterprise fund.
Yeah,
and
check with Eric, bring Eric
about
in,
whether
get a meeting
these
together.
numbers fit into their,
You got a couple options. You could possibly split it across 2 fiscal years.
Right.
Yeah.
Or if that doesn't work, you
right.
Mhm.
can
'cause
have a
we-
special separate article for it or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We are in a
I guess it's good
good
timing
spot
in
in
that.
in
Yeah.
sense of if we can take 25K from one year and then fiscal year
Yeah.
26, the enterprise
Right.
fund,
Right.
25K more. And we can talk to our partners down in Old Deerfield about,
Yeah.
some of this too. So,
We've always
Sure.
worked creatively with you too to spread,
right.
Yeah.
Invoice
We've
money
both
out,
been very
so-
grateful for that.
and the
Yeah.
town's been great to us. So,
Yeah.
thank you.
That's good.
All right. Any other
Okay.
questions for David before we let him go?
You got me. You got me.
You got his number.
All right,
All right,
David,
good
thank
job.
you so much.
Have a good
Thank
night.
you. I really appreciate you coming.
Take care.
Yeah, it's good to see you.
Okay, so, moving on to the next phase here, we're going to have select board reports, and I'm not sure if most people may not be aware of this, but we're talking about providing a childcare option for the annual town meeting for first time, so that
Oh, nice.
hopefully we can encourage more young families with children to participate.
That'd be Great.
I know that everybody here is of a certain age, except for Greg and Christopher. And we tend to recognize our same demographic at these meetings, and a lot of times, the Darius Matisto has helped arrange for vetting childcare providers. Is that right, Christopher?
Yeah, and then they would be using the gym space essentially.
Great.
Yeah, so.
You know,
Kids would
so
love it.
that we wouldn't have, liability issues and so forth for,
Yeah.
having unvetted childcare attendants. And so we really appreciate that. Hopefully we'll get some announcement out to the public as soon as we iron out all
Yeah.
the issues that might arise, and really try to make an effort to encourage people to come and participate.
That'd
So,
be excellent.
Are,
Great.
are they gonna need like a sign-up sheet or something so they know, what age groups are gonna be in there, or they're gonna be prepared to handle
Yeah, we're gonna,
all the way up?
we're still working out those details,
Yeah,
but
okay.
yep.
That'll be great. That's just fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, it's
Good
an
to get
idea
young
that's been
families in.
discussed in the past, and
Yeah,
I'm glad that people have brought it to us and that we've been able to try and move forward on it.
smart.
So this will be a pilot program, hopefully a permanent one.
Yes.
Other people, do you have, other people have announcements, Select Board?
I don't at the moment. I don't think it's-
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I would just suggest we might want to move a few items down. I see Mr. Sparks online here. He may be looking to speak to the Nicole Thornton appointment.
Yeah,
Um,
without objection,
do
I
that.
would offer Joshua Sparks the opportunity to.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for that. I appreciate it. I sent a letter to the select board. Nicole Thornton is one of our EMTs that started part-time with us in July of this last calendar year as part of that hiring group. She's been a very valuable employee since starting, and has recently completed paramedic school and all of the requirements necessary, and has obtained her paramedic certification, which is outstanding. So congratulations to Nicole. It's a tremendous effort.
Great.
Her request is that she continues with South County EMS in the role of a paramedic, and I can't think of anybody who I would rather have make that transition with us. Once again, she's been a wonderful asset to the organization and to our 3 towns. And we look forward to beginning the transition process and the lots of training that goes along with it. But we'd like to get started on that sooner than later. So the request to the select board is to appoint her in the new to her job description of part-time paramedic with South County EMS.
That's just a quick clarification. So when we say part-time, does that mean she would join your per diem crew or?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
And has the oversight reviewed this at all?
I believe we
Yeah.
have discussed it.
Okay, good.
Yeah, I mean, this
All right.
was the plan that Chief brought to us and said
Perfect.
he wanted to bring it to the select board as the fiduciary, and
Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
How long has she been with you?
Yeah, Blake, she started in, I believe her start date was July 1st of 2024.
Great. So I'll make a motion to approve Nicole Thornton as a part-time paramedic with South County EMS. Compensation is recommended at grade E, step 1, $31.23 per hour.
Second.
If I understood correctly from the Boo meeting, this also would qualify Nicole to pick up per diem work as a paramedic in other departments. Is that true? Or was-
Well, I mean, her certification allows her to seek employment with whoever she wants as a paramedic.
Okay,
But we have no purview over that.
very good. So any other discussion?
Just congratulations on
Hearing
achieving
none.
that.
All those in favor?
Trevor McDaniel, aye.
Blake Gilmore, aye.
Tim Hilchi, aye. Yeah, and
Yeah, and tell her congratulations from,
I will. Thank you. I appreciate your time this evening.
Sure,
all right,
thank you.
good night.
Good night.
Good night.
So we're back to Board of Health.
Yes, Board of Health, item number 5.
I've
Did
read,
Ned just fall off?
He generally has a conflict this
Yeah.
Wednesday.
I read his
That's right.
report, and looks good. He's got Title V and perk test. They're scheduling more often now, and he also said the BBD market owner was working diligently to bring up the place to code, which is good, which is the old Thayer Street deli. And let's see, he's got a Title V conference tonight. That's why he's not here. Must be. Right.
Yep.
I think it
Yeah.
looks like, yeah, March 5th. And that the nurse Ann Mastriato.
Ostra Totero, yeah.
Master Totero, that is a good one. So she's been filling in for Cindy, which is great. And he's been doing inspections. He's done food establishments of 10, and he inspected the indoor ice rinks as well with those towns. So great work. Thank you.
All right, thank you for summarizing that, Trevor.
Sure.
And did we feel that we don't have the bandwidth to do these minutes tonight because we haven't had a chance to
I
read them?
haven't had a chance to read them. If we
I
could
have to be honest, I didn't
stick them
either.
till next time, but
I-
great.
I'm going to abstain from all because they're all prior to me.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's good.
Yeah.
And yeah, because I know the packet came out, but I was working on the annual report for the town report.
Oh,
And,
thank you for that.
so
Thanks.
I,
Question on Board of Health real quick. Chip.
Sure.
Just, I was wondering if Ned at some point could give us a follow-up. There were two situations we were dealing with in the winter. One was the bus and kind of where we're at
Yeah.
with that. And I
Yeah.
just didn't know if we found a solution on that yet.
So the winter camping issue, we're waiting to hear back on council,
Okay.
a couple things. And then the bus, I know Bob has been working with the owner there. We've had a sort of freeze thaw issue. And so I
Yep.
gave them a little bit more time to remove the bus. It does look like they made a good faith effort to
Okay.
remove it at one point, but
All right.
again, freeze thaw.
Yeah. Yeah.
They
it's
they
been
ended up in a
tough.
lot of mud. So
Okay.
that might take a little bit longer to remove, but it does appear that property owner is working towards it. Yes.
yeah, it wants to comply with the desire.
Exactly.
That's great.
Christopher, I know that Ned's got a project that may be moving forward where there's an elderly gentleman they took out of a house and they may have to do some work on the house because it was in disrepair,
Okay.
considerable.
Yeah.
So I know that he's working on it, but there's nothing official at this point. And he hasn't been able to get into the building anyways.
Okay.
So this would be something that the Board of Health, the living conditions, it's not habitable, so it needs to be brought up to code by the
Right.
family members or,
Well, that's the problem. I think he's been having trouble finding family members and
To help.
that sort of thing when I talk to him. So
Okay.
okay.
again, it's just in the preliminary part of it now, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
He
Ned,
was-
Ned and I will touch base about it on Monday when we have our regular meeting.
Thank you.
Okay,
And I did just want to note, Greg and I met with Eric Malloy from Eagle Brook today, and I believe through the rink inspection, he had met Ned and he was singing his praises. So just wanted to
Nice.
give Ned a shout out for.
That's
for that, yeah.
fantastic. Great. It's great to hear. Always have good feedback. It's great to have. Yep. Okay.
All right, so next up, we're going to go into discussion of decision items. My tab 4, the agenda tab 7. So we have some really great news, and I'll let Christopher Dunn bring us through this about the landfill solar project that's been in discussion for better part of a decade.
Sure.
And
Sure. So I think it was back in 2019, the town worked towards putting out an RFP to put solar on our capped landfill at 42 Lee Road. The town actually got to the point of selecting a company, Nexamp, to provide the solar. We signed a lease in late 2020 for that photovoltaic field. And then essentially when a bunch of state incentives started to be phased out, Nexamp came back to the town and said, we need to reconsider how we're financing it. To the credit of our attorneys and Beth Greenblatt, who's our energy consultant, as well as Casey Warren, our former town administrator, they said, that's fine. That could have no impact on the lease payments you've already agreed to, given that, you were selected in part based on that. So Nexamp spent a little while contemplating how they were going to refinance the project. They came back to us in the fall and said, we believe we figured it out. Essentially move into a net metering, model, and then having the town serve as the public host for that. No substantial impact to the lease payments or pilot payments. And so what tonight you have before you is an amendment to the lease, which is, it's quite substantial. Obviously, payments starting around $200,000 annually, escalating at 2% for 20 years, and totaling, I think more than $5.5 million. And then also hot off the presses, we have the pilot agreement, the tax agreement. And actually, Tim, the copy you have before you is not the latest. So I just got an updated one just moments ago. And that one, pilot payments. The pilot agreement has payments starting, I believe around $43,000 and also escalating at 2% for 20 years. So that ends up being more than $1 million as well. So all told, quite a good deal for the town.
Yep.
Very excited. I know Nexamp is really excited to get started. The next steps upon execution of these agreements would be getting a bond for the construction from Nexamp, and then they would be looking to actually enter into construction this summer. And we would likely, none of this kicks in until they're in commercial operation, so they would need to actually be fully fired up and have their customers. But at that point, we could start collecting lease payments and also pilot.
We should probably, and it may have already been thought about, but just kind of like a separate entrance. I know that, with everybody doing the transfer station there, maybe there's a separate entrance to the side that they could come through and around and to get out back. I don't know.
Yeah, so they have a preliminary construction plan in there,
Okay,
and I'm
good.
not sure if it shows exactly a separate entrance, but I
Yeah.
think there was some consideration of the fact that, it's not printed in there. Oh,
It's
okay.
in it's in the packet.
Yeah,
I know
yeah.
it's a lot more than print. Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
I just thinking about, Saturdays and everybody coming through, or not that they might work on a Saturday, but just even Thursday, Tuesdays, maybe at one point we were going to do a separate entrance over
Yeah.
to the right, and maybe it might be worth doing that during this project, but
Yeah, and we can take a look at those construction
down-
plans
down the road.
and be in
Yep.
touch with them about it for sure.
great.
And
news.
we already had consolidated the two parcels into one parcel in an A&R, is that right?
Correct, and that's actually why that you just got a new version in front of you. Amy was kind enough to get it recorded this week, and so we have an updated parcel description. There's one other thing I was going to mention, just slipped my mind. So
While you're remembering it, I'm just going to reiterate this for the people in the recording, because we don't have a crowd out there. So the lease agreement is for a 20-year period, and as Christopher Dunn said, it starts out at 217,000 and change, and escalates to 316,000 and change over a 20-year period for a total of $5,279,000, $368, that is. And the pilot payments escalate from 43 to about 63K a year for a total of $1,055,000. So in total, $6.3 million for a 20-year lease. So it's substantial income that the town has waited a long time to get into the reality stage. So
and I remembered what I was going to say, which is just that the pilot agreement also needs to be executed by our Board of Assessors. So we'll get
Okay,
that in
yes.
front of them as well.
So tonight, do we need a
Motion?
motion to, this is the
Yep.
lease
The
is
lease
an amended contract, which we've already signed before, but, so,
Right, there's a lease amendment and then the actual tax agreement. So
I would make a motion to approve and have the chair sign, right? I assume the chair signed the lease agreement amendment with, between the town of Deerfield and Deerfield Renewables LLC.
Second.
any further discussion?
Nope.
Hearing none, all those in favor?
Trevor McDaniel, aye.
Blake Gilmore, aye.
Tim Hilchi, aye.
And then I would make a second motion to approve the,
1 second before we go. Was Tim supposed to sign this, or is Christopher supposed to sign this?
I don't
The
know.
documents
It
are
is
written for the
Tim?
select board.
Okay.
Select
Yeah.
board, oh,
Yeah.
the whole board?
I don't know if it says,
I would think it would be just the chair, right? Or, oh, full board. Okay,
Okay.
all right.
Yep.
Well, we'll do that. Friendly amendment.
and the chair of the Board of Assessors.
Yes, that's probably the tax.
Yep.
So then I would make a motion to approve the tax agreement.
Second.
Thank you.
And let me just check the signage on here. Full board and
All right.
the assessor chair. Okay, any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Trevor McDaniel, aye.
Blake Gilmore, aye.
Tim Hilchi, aye.
Really, yeah, definitely want to thank Beth Greenblatt. She has worked years, and Casey Warren has worked for a long time, and Carolyn Ness had worked a long time on this. Just a lot of people have put a lot of time for, well over a decade, on trying to get something to happen here. I remember talking about when I first started, and it had already been worked on for a long time. So really nice to finally have it come to fruition and be able to get some funding, good funding stream. Lord knows we have a lot to pay for.
Indeed, indeed. And since this is a large sum of money, we're going to take the time to sign this and not rush into the next bit of business.
Fine. We'll just relish the thought.
I'll give you the sign page. I also want to thank Lisa Mead and the rest of the town council team for the years they put into working on this.
Yeah,
I know they get compensated for it, but they give us good advice,
they do.
and they are good negotiators for when people want to change the lease agreements. And always
They
nice to have a
hold 'em
lawyer
to
say
the
no.
fire, they do. Thank you.
All right, so next up, we are again going to have Christopher give us a description about this, but it's contract for tie and bond for services through the final design phase of the Elm Street sidewalk rehabilitation project that is going to be paid for in large part by $500,000 Complete Streets grant.
Correct. So, of course, earlier this year, we got the $500,000 construction grant for the Elm Street Complete Streets project. That grant covers construction. It does not cover design services, so the town has to pay separately for those. I spent the last month or so talking to Ty and Bond, working with Chris Miller, our interim DPW superintendent, and Diane Cornwall to look at funding sources available. And we determined that beyond the $13,000 remaining appropriation from a town meeting in 2019 for Complete Streets projects, we've also got a significant rural apportionment that has come in.
Yep.
And that's a new piece of funding that small towns are receiving for transportation projects. And so we can put a little less than 50,000 of that towards this design fee as well. That $59,800 would get us through final design with Ty and Bond. We would need to talk about, bidding and construction administration, but, what I think would probably be prudent is to look at some other team to come in for the construction administration at least, that doesn't have Ty and Bond's overhead. But we can, as we get closer and get a fleshed out design, we can figure that piece out. And this would allow us to move forward, hopefully, within this construction season on this project. So it's great that we're going to be able to move forward with it, with the select board signature tonight.
So just one quick question before we finish up. There's also a separate page that I didn't see on the Deerfield renewables, and it's just First Amendment to lease agreement. It has one area for signature, and do we need a motion for that so that I can sign it?
Yeah,
I can't remember in all the motioning. Did you already,
I did.
did you motion the tax
I did
agreement?
I did the motion
there was-
for the
There was
agreement, the tax. Then there's just one signature.
We already did this, and there's three documents, we had two motions.
Oh, no, I think that one was replacing the other.
Yeah, so there's,
This one had,
let me take
Chris
a look.
Clark, Senior Vice President, one's,
But,
and then there's agreement, and then there's the amendment. think that's the agreement, and then this is the amendment that one needs to get signed.
Paper could have gotten mixed up. Yeah. I don't think it did, but I didn't actually.
Hmm?
make
Second guessing me?
That's the one that I questioned. This is the least.
This is one of page 5.
Yeah, so, okay, so I'll, and then, so do I need to sign that one?
Yeah, the chair would sign that one.
Just you though, right?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Mhm. Read that when it was signed. That's fine. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Move. Oh, gotcha.
So that one,
So that kind of money, yeah, they want to make sure it's right. Okay. Yep, great. Okay.
all right, so now we're back on the complete streets,
Time bond.
Yeah.
Yep.
we didn't have a motion. right?
No, I'll make a motion to approve the scope of services and contract with Ty and Bond for the Complete Streets Tier 3 services of Elm Street, final design services for $59,800.
Second,
And I authorize the town administrator to sign.
I second that too.
Perfect. Any further discussion?
Nope.
All those in favor?
Trevor McDaniel, aye.
Blake Gilmore, aye.
Tim Hilchi, aye. And since I'm always excited about sidewalks and parking lots, I just want to say this is great news. And
Yes.
thank you for all the hard work you guys have put in on it.
Yep. Great
stuff. Keep that to-
Put that there, yeah.
All right. Next up is review of a notary policy. Is that something you're going to speak to, Christopher?
Yeah, happy to. So if you recall, just earlier this year, Cassie Sandrell, our town clerk, got her designation as a notary public. And so once again, we have a notary public in town hall, and we can offer that service for free to residents. Cassie went out and found a policy that already existed in Sunderland,
Yeah.
took that, just adopted it for us, and it's a pretty straightforward, common sense document, but feel free to take a look. And this would be something she would just have posted out front, so whenever anyone comes by and does need a notary public, and we no longer have to send them across the street to the bank,
Yeah.
they know exactly what they need to do to access those services, so.
And this really makes sense that you really need, if you need a notary, just call ahead, make sure somebody's here, and, they won't be available 15 minutes before they close. They're doing other tasks at that time. It is a first come, first served basis, and they do not review all the documents to make sure that they are correct. They are just notarizing that they are documents, not that they're accurate. So you need to do your work and have your attorneys do their work. But yeah, great work. Thank you.
And so do we need to approve the policy?
Couldn't hurt.
Yeah.
Okay.
Make a motion to adopt the notary services policy.
Second,
Any further discussion?
Nope.
Hearing none. All those in favor?
Trevor McDaniel, aye.
Blake Gilmore, aye.
Tim Hilchi, aye.
Great work on Cassie's part. Thank you.
All right. I think we need to start breaking in other people on these one-day liquor license motions, but just been relying. Let's try Trevor. Let's try Blake on this
All
one.
right, sounds good.
I move that we set the special one-day liquor license for Yankee Candle Village in the name of Rayanne Jenks for
Date of event.
3/15/25 Saturday for the Shamrock Fest.
Yes.
There's-
St.
Sorry,
Patrick's
I gotta
Day
do
is
it again.
shopping.
I was in front of the mic. Okay, I need to practice anyway, so
Yep.
I move that we approve a special one-day liquor license for Yankee Candle Village. The name of the applicant, Rayanne Jenks, on 3/15/25 for the Shamrock Fest for the times of 12 p.m. to 6 p.m.
And St. Patrick's Day shopping event from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. at Yankee Candle Village, selling beer, wine, in the Candle Emporium Home Store.
Is that a second?
That's a second.
All right.
I was just like to sell this stuff.
Oh, okay. Well, good.
Enjoy
Got
your
your pillow
community.
windows? And
They do.
great. So, any further discussion? All the paperwork's in order and everything, so all
It
the
is.
insurances and
Yeah.
as typically are handled by Pat Martin, who does a great job on this. All those in favor?
Trevor McDaniel, aye.
Blake Gilmore, aye.
Tim Hilchey, aye. We all get to sign. Okay, and so why don't you take over talking about the second kennel reading while
Sure, happy to do it. Yep. So we brought this to the board back on February 19th. Just a quick recap. Massachusetts passed something called Ollie's Law, and this really updates and tightens up regulations around kennels. And as part of that, we wanted to provide an updated form for applicants to open kennels in Deerfield. Cassie and Amy both did a bunch of work tracking down forms and updating it. And so what we have in front of you is something that we put together for the town of Deerfield. And then also last week, Cassie tracked down a spreadsheet that basically laid out kennel fees of various towns. Greg did some work today to just narrow it down to, neighboring communities, so that this board could select some fees that are appropriate and competitive with our neighboring communities. And I know, Greg, I think you mentioned these are from 2023, right?
I was going to say, I would expect they've gone up since 2023, possibly, or maybe not. We don't have the figures from 2024, but with Ollie's Law, I would recommend you go a little higher than whatever you see as maybe an average in here.
We just changed our fees just a year ago.
Did you? Okay.
Yeah,
I don't know. I
Cassie
wasn't here
before
yet.
us. I don't know
Yeah.
if you were here at the time.
No,
No, he wasn't.
I was.
Yeah, but there should be updated information. I don't know, did Cassie provide these or no?
Cassie provided this spreadsheet.
Oh, she did?
Yeah.
Okay. I
Yeah,
thought
and
they were
actually,
higher.
what she's looking for, because what we don't have is the kennel license amounts
Correct.
for 5 through 10 dogs, 11 through 24,
Gotcha.
and 25 or more. So I think she's looking for those figures, because Deerfield is included in this.
Right. Thank you. Yes, that's right, because we haven't had a kennel. I thought the other ones were different rates that we changed, but maybe not. Okay.
Yeah, I think we changed some rates relative to licensing your dog.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah. Okay. So we need to figure on fees here for the kennel.
Greg, did you have a recommendation?
Well, I mean, I'm looking at this, and I would be looking to set fees on the higher side of this chart.
I would too.
I mean, Sunderland it seems to be, you might want to start at a 75 for a 5 through 10, and then maybe,
Yeah.
125 for 11 through 24, and maybe the same. You can always adjust these fees later, but I'm just, with the increase in sort of administration on this, that I don't think it could hurt to go a little higher.
So you had 75, 125,
And maybe stay with 125.
for both the
Yeah, for those to
larger
start.
ones.
That's
Okay.
kind of what I was looking at.
And you're saying that now we don't have a kennel in town? right?
No, that's
We
one of the
don't.
reasons we don't. We
But there's
didn't
an
have any kennel
application.
fees, so I mean, it'd be in line with what Irving is doing at this point.
Yeah.
Part of the thinking is that since there is an application and since the town is reviewing that application, that we should comply with Ollie's Law and
Mhm.
get something on the books so that it doesn't become an issue
Yeah.
with an
people know what they're
applicant,
dealing with. Yeah.
saying, hey, the town's holding me up because of this.
Right.
So,
That makes sense. I would make a motion for 70, I would agree with that assessment and make a motion for the license kennel from 5 to 10 dogs at 75 and for 11, 24 at 125 and the same with 25 or more at 125.
Second.
and the only thing that I would say is that we would review the highest, for more than 25 dogs, review based on if the clerk's office notices that there's a significant increase
Yeah.
in the amount of work to be done.
Please bring it back to us. Yep.
Okay, any further discussion?
Nope.
All those in favor?
Trevor McDaniel, aye.
Blake Gilmore, aye.
Tim Hilchi, aye. All right. The next item is also from work from the clerk's office, so I'll let you.
Yeah, sure. And I believe Cassie brought this before the board back in January. She did some work just reviewing what other communities are providing as pay for their election workers and wardens. And she said we're just a bit out of step with other communities. It's worth noting that even if you offer pay, a lot of folks actually just take these positions on a volunteer basis anyway. But she did come forward with a budget for FY26 for the Finance Committee. That budget at least received the initial approval. But at the end of the day, she does need the select board to actually ratify those changes in rates that she's requesting for election workers.
Okay, I can make a motion to approve, to adjust the pay for election workers, that are checkers, ballot box attendants, AV processors at $20 an hour, and clerks, wardens, and evening tally members at $23 an hour, and constables at $26 an hour.
Second.
Thank you for your work you do. Really important. And we're very grateful. They do a great job each election we have. Everything is always clear, concise. They do, just so important today, and so grateful for the work they do and happy to do it. And again, a lot of people just volunteer anyways, but for those that need it, I think it's great.
Yeah, and especially, this is the cornerstone of democracy at the local level.
Absolutely.
So thankfully, we live in a community where we haven't had any issues, and
Right.
may that continue for the next 350 years.
Yeah, absolutely.
If there's no further discussion, all those in favor?
Trevor McDaniel, aye.
Blake Gilmore, aye.
Tim Hilchi, aye. All right. Are there any board committee applications or appointments?
We already dealt with the only
Yeah,
one that we had.
Nicole Thornton's the only one? Okay, good. Can you take us through this notice of intent on timber harvest?
Yeah, sure. So we received this is a standard notification that abutters of forestry projects will receive. So it looks like Eelbrook is looking to do a timber harvest on Pine Nook Road. It happens to be across from the Pine Nook forest parcel that the town owns, and so we received a notification. In theory, these are really about ensuring that the property lines are correct. In this case, our property is across the road, so we don't need to go into it. They did provide a map of the proposed timber harvest, as well as the contact information for the forester who is, reviewing the forestry cutting plan that Eagle Brook has put forward. I believe, as a matter of course, this will come before our Conservation Commission as well, just for a cursory review. But happy if the board wants us to reach out to that forester as well.
This is the area that they were looking at doing trails and stuff, right? Up on top of the ridge. And I mean, obviously it's their property and you have to manage a forest, but I'm just wondering what it's going to look like when it's done. I mean, this is Pine Nook Road, right? And River Road.
So what
Yeah,
were you going to show us something?
I might pull this up on the map just so we can take a look.
And just while we're waiting, after discussing this with you and Greg for the agenda setting, I would like to ask that their forester provide the cutting plan to the Conservation Commission. We're fortunate enough on our Conservation Commission to have a state forester, and he could, give us a much better idea of what's being proposed, and ease our minds about this.
Yeah, I mean, it really does seem so I assume what's highlighted on this map are brooks, right?
No, those, like,
No?
if you look over here, you'll see Skid Road.
Yeah.
Most of these dotted lines are
Well, I'm looking at the waterways.
Yeah,
that
there's
are
a-
highlighted. And
in
then
the lower left corner, there's a vernal pond.
Yeah, and then the Skidder Road, so they'll come in off a river road to hit all this going up through.
Yeah, and then there's like a woods road that's where a lot of the skidder roads are. And I'm just trying to figure out where the waterways are. I guess they're the
They're
sort
the
of
ones with the
solid lines
arrow.
with the arrows.
Yes, exactly.
So
I mean, I believe this is kind of where this is up on the ridge, or is this not then down below?
it's right along Pine Nook Road. So yeah,
Right.
when you go up Pine Nook Road,
You get to
our
the-
property is on the left and their property is on the right.
Yeah,
Yeah, but Christopher is just about to
yeah.
give us a,
There. Oh, it's giving me trouble. Oh, there it goes. Now it's sharing. So let's see if I can walk us through this.
Yeah, that's
Yep.
the one right there.
Yeah, so here's Eagle Brook's main campus,
Yeah.
then Pine Nook Road comes down here.
Yeah.
And then the town lot that is across from it is this one right here.
Yeah,
And
that's
so
that
they're looking at all this in
Right.
here. Yeah.
and that's where all the thought they were looking at. We were gonna do a trail map up on there, right? I mean, that's what the Open Space Committee was looking at.
Yeah, and I know they're definitely focused on this
That
green line
section
here.
there.
Yeah,
Okay,
so
gotcha.
that's up on top
So
of the
this is
ridge.
further down on the slope. I see.
Right,
what you
yep.
mean. Okay, yep, I feel better. Yep. I mean, it needs to be managed anyways. I'm not like, oh, don't cut trees, but you always just want it to, it always looks rough for a little while after.
Right.
yeah.
So,
And that's why it's Sean Libby, who's the Conservation Commission state forester. He lives and breathes these plans.
yeah, he would
So
know
it'd be
better
great
than
to
I.
have, if you could ask him to share the plan with the Conscom and have them just give us a report.
Yeah, let me at least just check in and
Great.
we'll get an update from them.
Okay, thank you.
Now, is this going to be done professionally where they're going to have a logging company come in and take the,
Yeah,
Yeah, so if you are doing a timber harvest, you got to file a forestry cutting plan and yeah,
they've
you got to
got a
be on
way
a
to get all
list.
this
Yep.
they're going to take a skidder
Yeah.
up through there and,
it's all.
Blake, I was gonna just head up there with an axe and see what happens.
oh, you were hired to do it?
Actually, I think they got some like the junior and senior class or,
What was that?
work study.
What was that thing that Lorax would make?
Yeah, wood shop.
I can't remember what he made.
Actually,
The super axe
wood
hacker.
shop.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it was a, what do you wear? on
Oh, the
his-
Thneed.
The Thneed, yes, the Thneed.
That's been a favorite of my daughter's
I
recently. So
love that. Love that movie.
Yeah.
All right.
All right. So good. So we'll hear back from Conscom.
And then
All right. So next up.
yeah, so Eversource. So we mentioned this, I think, at the last meeting as well. So we've got a request for a poll petition from Eversource. They've got a whole bunch of poles they're looking to replace on Upper Road and Albany Road. And so they are just hoping we can find a time to schedule that poll petition. I think we determined that. Yep.
Okay.
So we could schedule it for the 19th, which is when our next normal select board meeting would be, or we could push it further out, depending on how the board feels. Yeah.
Thoughts?
That's fine.
I'm fine on the 19th if
Yeah,
that's fine.
That's fine.
And we bring them in and they have for a public hearing or?
Yeah, so it'll be a public hearing portion of the meeting, and I believe a representative from Eversource will be stopping by, possibly just zooming in.
Is there more than one? Because I think the one that I'm looking at here is for Lee Road. This one here, well, it says Old Albany and Upper Road, and then then there is maybe another petition for a Verizon one on Lee Road. I think there might be two,
Yeah,
because Lee Road is
that's right.
near
You,
Boynton.
and I think Blake mentioned the Lee Road one also.
This one makes
Yeah.
sense. This is out near my property. I know that a tree took it out maybe a couple of years ago in a snow ice storm or whatever. So they probably are moving the pole.
Wait a minute.
To be
it was
right on the
on
corner.
Lee Road?
Yeah, I think right where Boynton comes out.
Yeah, well, the reason for that is because the guy across the street is putting solar up.
Oh,
And he needs a transformer and they
I see.
put it on somebody's property.
Because I remember the tree took down the wires there a few years back, but I thought maybe it was that. But okay, I see. I saw you talking to them the other day when I
Yeah.
drove by.
I didn't see that in here. That's the reason.
There's the
why I'm
last
asking.
page.
Yeah.
Very last page, a petition plan for Star Electric and Verizon. Poll proposed on Lee Road, very last page.
Yeah. It's that, yeah.
This one?
Yeah,
On the
yeah,
back of it.
over there, right there.
Okay.
And it's the same engineer for the Eversource and the Verizon, so that's why it's a little confusing.
Yeah.
So Christopher, going back to the forestry things, just so you understand where I was coming from with this. I want to know what their plan is in egressing that stuff out of there.
Yeah, yeah.
Because again, I don't want to see River Road broken up or covered in mud for, I want to, that's the only reason why.
No,
was
no,
asking.
I was giving you a hard time.
I get it. Again, like I said, I'm more interested in the way I've seen how loggers work. and
Yeah, no,
Make sure that,
absolutely.
They are pretty
they're under attack.
They got sharp
invasive
saws.
species. Yep. Okay, so where were we on?
So we'll schedule, we don't need a motion or anything, but we'll schedule for the 19th, those
Okay.
two poll petitions.
Perfect.
Perfect.
Sounds good.
Were you
Yeah,
going
'cause
to
I
go
didn't
back
see
to
a
that
map
one?
for the other one. I didn't see a map for the,
Upper Road and Albany Road.
yeah, so that'll probably come
They
later.
already wrote a letter, but
But
yeah,
it's got one, two,
we'll ask-
three,
I think he's
four
gonna do
polls,
it, yeah, he's gonna
looks
do
like.
it in our town administrator's report,
Okay.
I believe.
All right, ready for my report?
Yes,
Yes.
Okay. So really quick, a few updates on the town meeting warrant. I didn't bother including a version in your packet because obviously we'll do a deeper review at some point. We had discussed having an EV charging revolving fund. Brenda got a hold of Tom Scanlon to talk about it. His recommendation was not to bother. So at this point, I'm fine with not having that revolving fund on the warrant.
Yep.
A couple new items that came in. FERCog, as some of you may be aware, is requesting an update to their charter, and that
Yes.
requires a vote of every member town.
Yeah.
All of it very boilerplate, very straightforward. And Linda already provided a warrant article and the details, so we'll put that right in there.
Offered to come, I don't see a
it's-
need,
yeah.
maybe there might be a town here or there that doesn't, but we're pretty involved. I know Greg and I are pretty involved in FERCog meetings and stuff, so it is pretty boilerplate. A
Yeah.
lot of just cleaning up language.
Yeah, and obviously we include any of those details in the meeting packet for town meetings, so. And then two citizens petitions, the anticipated one around climate leadership, as well as the one from last year around 16-year-olds being able to vote have also come in. So those will be added to the end of the warrant there. So more updates to come, I'm sure, and I'm working with Lisa on the warrant, but we'll discuss further at the next meeting.
Was thinking about capital, and I wondered if we should at least put a capital request in so it's on their schedule for the effluent pipe. I mean, I know it's not something that we're doing right this minute, but I think that we probably should have it on the calendar, on that schedule anyways, just so that they know, because if we don't, like, you have to then convene a meeting and stuff. I don't know if it's too late to put one in at this point or not. Probably is.
Well,
We
I
do
mean,
it every
they have
year.
a December 1st deadline, but
I get
Mark's pretty flexible.
But it's not that it's being funded today. I just wanted to just maybe
Sure.
get it on the calendar or
Trevor, is there some sort of wording you want? Is there something you could can
yeah,
get
we
right
could
up-
fill out,
'cause
we could take that application we did for.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
over there and just stick
DPC
it
has
together
already
really quick.
provided all the details.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
can bring that. I'm
All
going
right.
to all those meetings. so
Yeah,
I
maybe we
bring
can
that
get
to
it tomorrow. I know Mark had a question for me too, but I'll reach out to him.
Okay.
And
Just thinking we should probably get it on that schedule, you know, at some point, so it's there. And I don't know if we want to also put on the, I don't know, at one point we did have sewer projects on there, but we might want to put something on for that as well.
well, it would be,
I mean, it's again, it's
sewer
years,
project,
it's
yeah,
years from now.
no
but-
idea how much it's gonna cost.
I know.
No idea when it's gonna start.
Right,
But
but it needs to be noticed at some point. So, all right, that's all I got.
Great. All right. And then just a couple quick updates on projects. So Stillwater Bridge, as I think we discussed previously, appraisals of all the easements have been completed. Just compensation has been not awarded, but it has been identified.
Okay.
And we do have one property owner who's going to be looking to donate their easement. So
Oh,
thank you,
nice.
Franklin County Land Trust, for your willingness to donate that $100 to the town.
That's very great, very generous. Oh, they're good.
Yeah.
That's great.
And so next steps, we have a surveyor out in the field. They're going to be completing their survey of the mitigation property we're offering for Article 97 in the next couple weeks. At this point, we're still waiting on DCR to get us comments back on the special legislation that would need to be filed. Lisa and I are working on that, but I believe we can proceed with the legislation as it is in the town meeting warrant. That warrant article will have a language that allows some flexibility for us to change it if needed. Yeah, exactly.
Good.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
that's great.
So that's where that stands for the moment. South County Senior Center, that efficiency and regionalization grant is now closed out. They do have one more community meeting coming up on the 19th in Sunderland. And so we should have a final report from EDM Studio in the coming weeks. And yeah, we're all set on that for the moment. 1888, just wanted to mention that we have a meeting with USDA coming up. It's going to be sort of hot and heavy for the next few weeks as we get finalized construction drawings from Q and Riddle Architects, and they start putting together bid documents as well. USDA is going to be looking at the possibility of obligating funds early for us, and that is a good thing. The sooner we can get those funds under contract, the better. I also just wanted to mention I put a CIPC request out there for the additional parking and driveway work that had been identified when we submitted an updated site plan. And I've been working with Chris Miller and Diane to look at Chapter 90 and fair share funding that might be available to fund that if it turns out the bids come in such that we need to use town funds to supplement.
I think that we're talking about possibly having that as the first alternate.
Right.
So that we can actually have a breakout of what the cost would be if we actually went with a contractor versus trying to do it in-house.
Yeah.
Right. Senior housing, you heard from Lily already. The RFP is out there. The site visit is on Thursday, the 13th at Thursday, March 13th at 10 a.m. That bid is going to close on April 17th as well. So I just wanted to mention that. So fingers crossed. It's been, we sent it out to not only a whole list that FERCog has of developers who have worked on prior senior housing projects, but also sent it out to some folks we've worked with just from design teams on this project, 1888, anyone we kind of liked through those processes. And the Senior Housing Committee and Lely had some names to add to that list as well. So it's gone out far and wide, and now we just hope we get some responses and some interest, and we'll certainly see at that site walk who shows up. And then I
Does
think,
it go on to any bid services? Like, a lot of times when we're looking at stuff commercially for our job, our commercial team, there'll be a bid service and they'll see, Springfield College adding a dorm, it's $7 million or something like that. And so it just gets developers, that are looking for.
yeah,
projects.
so the town puts it on combis,
That's
and
correct,
then
that's it,
then
yep.
usually those sites pick it up. Yep.
Okay, great.
Yep.
Perfect.
And one thing too that I've raised with Christian Ellico and then Governor Healy's office is, with the uncertainty about federal funding for these types of projects. Would the governor's office be interested in including this kind of work in the housing bond bill
Right.
that she's championed?
Yeah.
Because, additional housing units are additional housing units,
Get
and
'em
they
out.
open up other housing units. And so I haven't heard back. Well, Christopher and I haven't heard back, but
Yeah, something out
you know,
west.
yeah,
That'd be
because, you got to look at every funding source and
Yep.
hopefully, obviously, if we hear back, that's another good
Yep.
bit of news.
Great thoughts.
Great. And then just real quick, some personnel updates. Just so everyone's aware, Karen's going to be working reduced hours for a little bit. So she'll be here 8 to 10. So she'll have that 1 hour to kind of catch up before the public's, in the building, and then an hour essentially each day for customer service. So hoping she'll be back up to full speed very soon, but just wanted to make everyone aware of that. Other updates, our new DPW Superintendent, Matthew Morse, is going to be starting on Monday. He will be in the building at the end of this week to just chat with some folks, and looking forward to welcoming him and, getting to have him on our team. We think he's going to be a great addition. And then lastly, I did want to mention, I met with the personnel board earlier this month. We made some updates to the personnel manual, and, just to allow some greater flexibility around when we're negotiating with candidates around vacation time. That's been, a consistent challenge, obviously. And I know the personnel board expressed an interest in just overall reviewing our vacation time policy. It was obviously set at a different time and a different kind of way of approaching these jobs, and I think it's definitely time for an update. So that should be coming in soon. And that's all I have for the moment.
great.
If the board has any questions.
Greg, have you been busy enough lately?
Busy, yes, absolutely. Been very busy. The only thing I would add is I would just want to give a thanks to Dave Callahan for helping me finish up the EV chart reporting. We got the one-time reporting in, which is makes us compliant, which is
Anybody
great.
there to receive it?
What's that?
Anybody there to receive it?
Yeah, I mean, who knows? It just goes in. It goes into the portal and out into the abyss, wherever
Yeah.
that is. But now, it would very much appreciate it because he had the breakdown of the installation costs, which
Great.
was hard for me to find. So
Yeah,
but we're compliant, so that's
Yep.
great.
that's good.
Excellent.
That's it.
Really?
Thanks for that, because I know it was a major headache.
Yeah.
And Dave's great to work with from Universal Electric. He's fantastic.
Good to know.
Anything else from anyone? Hearing nothing, I'll take a motion.
Motion to adjourn.
Second,
All those in favor?
Trevor McDaniel, aye.
Blake Gilmore, aye.
Tim
Have a
Hilchi,
good-
aye.
Have a good week, everybody.
Thank you.